Alrighty, good day to all you glorious legendary resonators, you absolute beautiful bastards. My name's FOXSOL, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another conversation video. In today's video, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind in the last couple of weeks, and honestly, been debating on how to make this video. I've done it multiple times and done several different takes, but you know, I want to try a different format. I want to discuss, really, the way that WutheringWaves is currently being portrayed by some content creators out there, and how they're overhyping, they're overglazing of certain aspects of the game can actually do more harm than good at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong though, WutheringWaves is a fantastic game, but I think it's time that we need to take a step back, address the elephant in the room, that there is some misrepresentation of what's going on right now actually in the game, and discuss it. So when it comes to the overglazing, the overhyping that content creators like to do with WutheringWaves, I want to put it like this. To me, they are setting up some of the most unrealistic expectations for the community, especially around for the new players who are just looking for their next gacha game fix. I've seen plenty of videos out there with creators praising the game as if it's a revolutionizing gacha game, that it's going to hit every aspect of the genre, that the combat's perfect, the world building's unmatched, the future of all gacha games. Now, don't get me wrong, WutheringWaves does excel in many areas, but to basically call it perfect or saying that it's the best gacha game ever is not only premature, but it's misleading. And when these new players who are jumping in after hearing all this amazing hype, they're going to notice that the game still has issues. Maybe their experience of frame drops in certain areas, or they find the story doesn't quite have the depth that they expected. Maybe they'll realize that, you know, certain game features are still right now missing. Those things don't line up when you're over glorifying the game. So by pretty much selling the game to new players like this, we're setting up disappointment, and it's going to be inevitable at the end of the day that these people will get upset. And they came here expecting a 10 out of 10. You know, the game everybody's saying it's a 10 out of 10. It's the best game there is. Kuro games can't do nothing wrong. But in the end of the day, these same people might just walk off feeling like it's more of a 7 and have some trust issues. This has been one of the biggest issues that I've seen coming into the WutheringWaves community. It's a tendency for these content creators to make bold claims that, while they're not entirely false, I will say that, they do lead to misrepresentation of the game. You'll see titles like WutheringWaves has ruined exploration for all other gachas. WutheringWaves character balancing is light years ahead of its competition. Statements like these inflate the game's strengths to the point to where it's not really realistic. Take exploration. Yes. You know, WutheringWaves has a fantastic environment. The map is great. The way the momentum works in the game, it's incredibly immersive. But to say that it's ruined exploration in other gacha games is a bit much, because you do have games out there like Tower of Fantasy, which really, I've experienced that game several times, and the exploration in that game is really good. I think that they really did pride themselves on a lot of base on the exploration. So to me, making statements like this may be a bit too much. It creates a false narrative that no other game can compare to this, and it sets up some players to think that WutheringWaves is the pinnacle of everything that's going to be open world, when There's still some other areas that could be addressed and still need work that Kuro Games even stated that they are working on. The character balancing, another one. Sure, WutheringWaves has a great system, but we haven't hit the power creeping yet. And even if you look at their system, there's some things around it that does not seem to be perfect. Saying that it's a revolutionizing that, you know, gacha characters now have a balancing like this and that other gacha games need to copy it pretty much, is very misleading when other games have just as much depth and complexity behind it, if not maybe a little more. So while the core of this information in these statements isn't exactly wrong, it's exaggerating to the point of misrepresentation, in my personal opinion, which leads to players having inflated expectations of what the game actually is offering. And in general, some players actually do believe this. Now, we're going to get into discussing pretty much about the consequences of, you know, overhyping, overglazing a game like WutheringWaves. And this is in general to not just WutheringWaves, but a lot of other games out there. When it comes down to the game, or whether it comes down to the community, we need to talk about something called trust for a second. When a player jumps into a game based off exaggerated claims, and those claims don't actually hold up, their trust for both the content creator, their trust for the game itself starts to wither. So they begin to question whether or not they can rely on this information that's being shared to them, and can they create, you know, it can create this disillusionment in the community. It also risks basically the upsetting of players who are looking for a balanced and honest review. And if all they're hearing is hype, overglazing, without maybe the mention of some of the game's actual flaws or areas of improvement that it needs, they're not getting the full picture. And when those flaws inevitably show up in their gameplay experience, they may tend to feel more misled or deceived than anything. This is where the idea of toxic positivity comes into play. When creators only push positive agendas and refuse to acknowledge the negatives or overlook the negatives of certain things, this doesn't create a healthy environment for discussion. People become more defensive about the game. They start shutting down any forms of criticism, even if it's valid. We all seen moments where fans of a game react aggressively to anyone pointing out issues because they're a big fan. But that's not how a community should work. It's not how a community should be. We should be able to talk about both the good and the bad without turning everything into a damn argument. So, you'll ask me probably, why is this such an important topic to you? Why should I care about avoiding overhype? Why should I stop, you know, overglazing, you know, WutheringWaves? I mean, positivity is such a great thing. And I'll say it like this: for healthy criticism, it helps to make better games at the end of the day. We know, and I'm sure you will agree with me in the statement, we know that WutheringWaves is not a perfect game. It has a bright future. It has a great path to go ahead. It has an advantage. And we should be able to discuss its flaws along with its strengths, so that way for content creators like myself, for viewers, for players in general, people who love WutheringWaves, we can properly give developers meaningful feedback at the end of the day. If all they see is endless praise, they may be misled about the areas that really do need improvement. For example, When it comes down to optimization issues that may get overlooked or story pacing might not get the attention it deserves, developers rely on more balanced feedback at the end of the day to prioritize what needs fixing at what time and what players are most enjoying at this time. So giving honest, well-rounded criticisms, will help make the game better for everyone. And as content creators in general, we are people that honestly help push these communities that we have, which are fans of WutheringWaves, to give them different perspectives. And if, as content creators, if we're doing is overglazing WutheringWaves to try to push these agendas, we're not providing that well-rounded critique that someone like Kuro Games is looking for when everyone's going to start agreeing like, oh yeah, WutheringWaves is a 10 out of 10 amazing game. You did great job, Kuro. This also helps keep the community as well grounded instead of setting themselves up for disappointment, in my personal opinion. We can celebrate what the game does really well while recognizing what still needs work. There's no need to pretend that it's perfect when it's not. There's no need to acknowledge, every single aspect of the game's positive sides all the time. We should be able to acknowledge not just the positivity, but the negative aspects as well. We should be able to see both sides, doesn't make, the game any less better. It doesn't make it any less passionate for us to play the game if we just become more honest. But I digress. At the end of the day, WutheringWaves is a game that I will say is an incredible experience that Kuro Games has lived up to a lot of expectations. I give them that. This game has absolute incredible potential that shows what a future of this game can be. And that's the thing. The game is still growing. We don't need to inflate its strengths or downplay its issues that we love. Overhyping only leads again to disappointment, frustration, and a toxic community at the end of the day. By being honest as both content creators, as both players, we can give the game room to improve, keep the communities healthy, and open the discussion that we all kind of want. We want to be able to hear the criticisms, I believe. We want to be able to have that conversation back and forth and not feel like it's a personal attack. So the next time you see a piece of content that seems to be overglazed about what WutheringWaves is doing, completely amazingly, this new feature, this new co-op, whatever it is, just take it with a bit of a grain of salt. Let's try to keep the conversation more honest, more balanced. Let's help WutheringWaves. Let's help Kuro become the game that we know it can be. So, yeah. If you did enjoy this conversation, discussion, by any chance, guys, please consider hitting that like button down below. Please consider subscribing for more content like this. Drop your thoughts also in the comments. What do you think about the state of WutheringWaves? It is being overhyped, I do believe. But do you believe that? Do you believe it's being overhyped, or do you think it does live up to all its praises? I want to hear from you about all of this, and I would like to have your honest, true opinion. There's no need to glaze it. There's no need to, bring hate into the comment section. Just be yourselves, and, the comment section is a no judgment free zone. So, until next time, guys, always keep it, always know this. Keep it classy, keep it jazzy, keep it real, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.